Victoria Ashford had built an empire on calculated decisions and measured responses. She controlled 38 floors of Manhattan real estate through strategy and precision. But on a Wednesday afternoon in October, with her cashmere sweater clinging to her skin and her carefully styled blonde hair coming undone in the wind, calculation meant nothing. Survival meant running. The man behind her had once whispered promises in the dark. Now his voice carried across Madison Square Park like a hunter closing distance on prey. Blake Morrison moved through the scattered families and office workers with the confidence of someone who had never been told no, whose father sat on a federal bench and whose last name opened doors that slammed shut for ordinary people. 6 months of this. 6 months since she had ended things, and he still refused to hear the word that mattered most. Her eyes swept the playground with the same rapid assessment she brought to hostile board meetings. A hot dog vendor arguing with a customer. Families scattered across benches. Children on swings. And there, near the northeast corner, a man sitting alone with a little girl. Both of them watching a pigeon with the kind of focused attention that suggested they had nowhere else to be, no schedule dictating their Wednesday afternoon. She made the choice in the space between heartbeats. Her legs carried her forward before her mind could catalog the risks. She was falling into a stranger's lap with the full force of desperation, her face buried against his shoulder, her hands gripping his jacket like he was the only solid thing in a world that had been tilting sideways for half a year. The words came out pressed against the warmth of his neck, barely a whisper but weighted with everything she could not say in the open. Please pretend you know me. Pretend we're together. He's right behind me. The man's arms came up instinctively. She felt the moment of tension, the natural human reaction to a stranger invading personal space. Then something shifted. His arms tightened around her in what she prayed looked like familiarity rather than the accommodation of something inexplicable. His voice was low and steady, surprisingly calm for someone who had just had a terrified woman land in his lap without warning. Okay, I've got you. 3 words, simple and direct. They loosened something that had been wound tight in her chest for months. Victoria kept her face hidden as footsteps approached. Blake's voice cut through the ambient noise of the park, sharp and possessive. Vivian, I know you're here. The stranger's hand came up to cup the back of her head in a gesture that felt protective and intimate. His other arm stayed firm around her waist. Up close, she could see the steadiness in his dark eyes, the way he tracked Blake's movement without giving anything away. His jaw was set with quiet determination. It's okay. I'm right here. Blake passed within 10 feet of them. Victoria felt every muscle in her body coil tight, ready to bolt. But the stranger held her steady, turning slightly to shield her face from view. To anyone watching, they were just another couple in the park, stealing a quiet moment on a Wednesday afternoon. Nothing to see, nothing remarkable. The footsteps continued past. Blake's voice echoed from the far side of the park, still calling her name, still searching, but he was moving away. His hunt was taking him toward the street exits on the east side. The voice that shattered the fragile safety was small and curious and entirely unexpected. Daddy? Who's that lady? Victoria pulled back just enough to see the little girl standing there with a pretzel nearly as big as her head. She was maybe 6 years old, with curly dark hair pulled back in a purple scrunchie. Her brown eyes were wide with curiosity that shifted quickly to concern as she took in the scene before her. The man who had just saved Victoria's life shifted carefully, helping her move from his lap to sit beside him on the bench. His movements were deliberate, maintaining the illusion of casual intimacy while creating proper space. His voice carried warmth despite the adrenaline still flooding his system. Maya, hey, come here. This is my friend Victoria. She surprised me. The little girl approached with caution. Her eyes moved from Victoria's face to her clothes, to her hands, to the way she was sitting beside her father. She was cataloging details with methodical attention. "You made Daddy jump." Victoria found her voice, though it came out shakier than she would have liked in any boardroom. The fear began to evaporate, replaced by something gentler as she looked at this child who was studying her with such serious focus. "I did. I'm sorry, that was rude of me." Maya took another step closer. Curiosity was overtaking caution. "You're really pretty, like someone on TV." A genuine smile flickered across Victoria's face. Something cracked in that legendary composure. "Thank you. You're very kind." Victoria held out her hand with the same seriousness the child had offered. Maya shook it solemnly. "I'm Maya Thompson. That's my daddy, Jamal." "Victoria Ashford. It's wonderful to meet you, Maya." Recognition slammed into her like a physical blow. She knew this man. Not personally, but she knew the name. Jamal Thompson worked for her, editorial analyst in the literary fiction division, 34th floor. She had reviewed his work during quarterly assessments. His analyses were sharp and insightful, his taste impeccable. But that legendary memory of hers that had built her reputation in the publishing industry was now showing her something she had not expected. "Mr. Thompson." His eyes met hers, and she saw the moment he understood. He worked for her. She was his boss. And she had just crashed into his Wednesday afternoon with his daughter and dragged him into something that could end very badly for both of them. "Miss Ashford." Maya's attention had already shifted. She pointed at the pigeon that had wandered back to forage near their bench. "That one has a funny foot. We've been watching it. Daddy says it probably got hurt, but it learned to walk differently so it could still find food. He says that's called adapting." Jamal's hand rested gently on his daughter's shoulder. His voice carried the patience of someone who had answered 1,000 questions just like this. "Things learn to survive, baby. They find new ways when the old ways don't work anymore." Victoria felt the weight of those words settle somewhere deep. She was still shaking. Her hands trembled as she smoothed her sweater, trying to reassemble the armor she wore in every other part of her life. But here on this bench, with a man who had every reason to walk away, and a little girl who was now explaining the social hierarchy of pigeons, the armor would not quite fit back into place. Is he still out there? Jamal's eyes scanned the park perimeter without making it obvious. "I don't see him." "But you're safe here." "How can you be sure?" "I can't." But it seemed like the right thing to say. The honesty of it made something shift in her chest. She had spent 6 months dealing with lawyers who promised protection they could not deliver, and security consultants who offered solutions that felt like prison. This man offered nothing but the truth, and somehow, that mattered more than all the expensive expertise money could buy. "How bad is this?" His question was direct and practical, the same tone someone might use to assess a scraped knee or a playground dispute. Victoria dropped her voice to barely a whisper. Maya was absorbed in breaking off pieces of pretzel to throw to the pigeon. "He's been following me for 6 months, ever since I ended things. He thinks I'm making a mistake, that I'll come back. Will you?" The word came out absolute and final. "Never." "Then he won't accept that. Have you called the police?" Victoria's laugh was bitter and exhausted. "And tell them what? That my ex-boyfriend is trying to talk to me in public? That he's calling my name? There's no threat, no violence, just persistence. His father is a federal judge. My lawyer says unless Blake does something overtly illegal, I'm better off not escalating." Jamal processed this. His mind was working through implications, assessing risks. Blake had looked expensive, moved with the confidence of someone used to getting his way. If he was willing to hunt Victoria through a public park in broad daylight, what else was he capable of? That sounds like stalking. Try proving it in court when his family has connections to half the judges in the Southern District. Maya's voice interrupted them. She had crouched on the ground with pretzel pieces scattered around her feet. The limping pigeon was eating from her palm with cautious trust. Can we keep him? No, baby. Pigeons need to stay in the park. But he's lonely, I can tell. Jamal glanced at Victoria and caught something raw in her expression as she watched Maya. Something that looked like longing mixed with pain. It was gone in an instant, hidden behind the composure she wore like a second skin. But he had seen it, and it changed something in how he understood the woman sitting beside him. The pigeon has a whole family here, Maya. All the other pigeons. He's not lonely, I promise. Maya considered this with the gravity she brought to important matters. Okay, but I'm going to visit him every time we come here. Deal. Victoria stood. She smoothed her jeans in a gesture that looked like an attempt to reclaim control. I should go before he comes back. She looked at Jamal, and for a moment, the mask slipped again. Thank you for what you did. I know it was bizarre and inappropriate, and I'm sorry for putting you in that position. It's okay. Jamal stood as well, keeping himself between her and the direction Blake had gone. Are you going to be all right? I always am. It's what I do. The smile she offered was practiced and professional, the kind of smile that had probably closed million-dollar deals and ended careers with equal efficiency. Jamal recognized it for what it was, armor and defense. The face she showed the world to hide whatever was breaking underneath. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. Then she grabbed a pen from her purse and wrote something on the back. My personal cell. If Blake contacts you or if there's any fallout from this, call me immediately. I'll handle it. Jamal took the card, the weight of expensive cardstock between his fingers. On the front, embossed lettering read, Victoria Ashford, CEO, Ashford Publishing. On the back, a phone number in neat, precise handwriting. I mean it. Victoria's voice carried an edge of something he could not quite identify. Any problems at work, anything at all, call me. I won't let this affect your position at the company. I'm not worried about that. Then you're not thinking clearly. But there was no edge to the words, just exhaustion. Thank you again, both of you. She started to walk away, and Jamal watched her go. Watched the transformation happen in real time. With each step, she pulled herself taller, straightened her shoulders, became once again the untouchable Victoria Ashford who ran a publishing empire with calculated precision. By the time she reached the park entrance, she was checking her phone with the brisk efficiency of someone whose time was worth thousands of dollars per hour. Maya appeared at his side. Her small hand slipped into his. Daddy, is Victoria okay? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. She seemed sad under the pretty. Jamal looked down at his daughter, at her serious expression, and wondered how someone so young could see so clearly. Yeah, I think maybe she is. Maybe she needs a friend. Maybe she does. They stayed in the park for another hour, but Jamal's attention was split. He kept scanning the trees and pathways for signs of Blake's return. He saw nothing, no one suspicious. But the peaceful Wednesday afternoon had been fractured by something he did not fully understand yet. When they finally headed home to their small apartment in Hell's Kitchen, Maya chattering about the pigeon and whether they could come back tomorrow, Jamal found his hand going to his pocket, feeling the edge of Victoria's business card like a promise or a warning. He did not know which yet. The offices of Ashford Publishing occupied floors 34 through 38 of a gleaming tower in Midtown. Jamal arrived Monday morning with the same mixture of exhaustion and determination that powered most of his days. Maya was safely deposited at her school's before care program. His mind was already organizing priorities. The manuscript from Rebecca Morrison needed notes by noon. The acquisition meeting for the debut novel he was championing was at 2. A phone call with an agent about contract terms at 3:30. He was halfway to the elevators when he heard his name. "Jamal, wait up." Marcus Blake jogged across the marble lobby, his messenger bag bouncing against his hip. Marcus was one of the other senior editors and Jamal's closest friend at Ashford. He had the perpetually rumpled look of someone who cared more about words than appearance. His hair was always slightly too long, his ties always slightly askew. "Did you hear?" "Hear what?" "The drama on 38. Marcus jabbed the elevator button with unnecessary force. Apparently, Victoria Ashford fired 3 executives Friday afternoon, just walked into their offices and told them to pack up. Jamal felt something cold settle in his stomach. Why? No one knows. But the rumor is it's something personal, not performance-related. Marcus studied him with the same careful attention he applied to manuscripts. People are saying she's been on edge for months. More than usual. Something's going on. Jamal said nothing. He was thinking about the woman who had trembled in his arms, who had looked at his daughter with such naked longing it had hurt to witness. The elevator arrived and they stepped in with a handful of other employees, all of whom were engaged in their own versions of the executive firing gossip. Jamal tuned it out, watching the floor numbers climb, thinking about Victoria's words. Blake won't leave me alone. What if the firings were not random? What if Blake had connections at Ashford? The pattern was becoming clear, always stopping just before the illegal line, always using systems and people to maintain control. The elevator stopped at 34, and Jamal stepped out into the familiar chaos of the editorial floor. His office was a small glass cube overlooking the city, a space he had personalized with photos of Maya and stacks of manuscripts in various stages of review. It was organized chaos that made sense only to him. He had barely settled at his desk when his phone rang. Internal number from the 38th floor. His hand hesitated over the receiver. The 38th floor was executive territory, a place editors ventured only when summoned for very good reasons or very bad ones. Jamal Thompson. The voice was professional and efficient. "Mr. Thompson, this is Catherine, Miss Ashford's executive assistant. Miss Ashford would like to see you in her office at your earliest convenience." "Is this about a manuscript?" "I'm not at liberty to say. Are you available now?" He looked at his schedule, at the careful architecture of his day. "Yes, I'll be right up." The 38th floor was a different world from the editorial floor's controlled chaos. Here, everything was sleek glass and polished leather, muted colors and expensive art. The silence had weight to it, the kind of quiet that came from people who understood the value of discretion. Catherine was a woman in her 50s with the composed efficiency of someone who managed other people's disasters for a living. She greeted him with a professional smile. "Mr. Thompson, please have a seat. Miss Ashford will be with you shortly." Jamal sat in one of the leather chairs outside Victoria's office, his hands clasped between his knees. Through the glass wall, he could see Victoria on the phone, her expression sharp with concentration. She was back in her armor, tailored charcoal suit and hair in that severe bun. Every inch the corporate warrior. She looked nothing like the frightened woman from the park. The call ended, and Victoria's eyes found him through the glass. Something flickered in her expression. Recognition, perhaps concern. Then she was standing, gesturing for Catherine to send him in. Jamal entered her office, and the door clicked shut behind him with the finality of a vault ceiling. "Mr. Thompson." Victoria was standing behind her desk, her posture rigid. "Thank you for coming up. Please sit." He sat. The chair was expensive and uncomfortable, in the way that all expensive corporate furniture seemed to be, designed more for appearance than actual use. Victoria did not sit. Instead, she moved to the window, her back to him, looking out over Manhattan with the bearing of someone surveying a kingdom she had never asked to inherit. "I assume you've heard the rumors about Friday's terminations." "Some." Marcus mentioned it was personal. Victoria turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable. The 3 people I fired Friday all had one thing in common. They were feeding information about my schedule and movements to Blake Morrison. The cold feeling in Jamal's stomach solidified into certainty. Your ex? My ex. Victoria's smile was sharp enough to cut. Apparently, he's been cultivating informants in my own company. People I trusted. People who thought his family connections and his money were worth more than their loyalty to me. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm better off knowing who I can't trust. She moved back to her desk, finally sitting. Some of the rigid control seemed to ease fractionally. I wanted to see you because I need to know if Blake has contacted you. After Wednesday. After what happened in the park. No, nothing. Good. But she did not look relieved. He may not have recognized you, or he may be waiting, gathering information before he makes a move. Blake is patient when he wants to be. Jamal leaned forward in his chair. Ms. Ashford, Victoria. Why are you telling me this? You could have sent an email or just increased building security. Her answer came out flat and factual, but Jamal heard the weight behind it. Because you have a daughter. Because if Blake decides you're actually important to me, if he thinks Wednesday was real, he might try to use that against me. Against both of us. Victoria's voice dropped, something raw bleeding through the professional veneer. And I won't have a 6-year-old child caught in the crossfire of my mistakes. The protective fury in her voice surprised him. Maya's safe. I'm careful about that. I'm sure you are. But I'm offering resources if you need them. Security, legal support, whatever it takes to keep your daughter safe while this plays out. While what plays out? Victoria studied him for a long moment. Jamal had the unsettling feeling she was weighing options, calculating risks. I've hired a private investigator to document Blake's harassment. I'm building a case for a restraining order, but I need evidence of a pattern. Escalation. My lawyer says it could take weeks, months. And in the meantime, I'm careful. I vary my routine. I don't go out alone when I can avoid it. She paused. Wednesday was a mistake. I was feeling claustrophobic in my apartment. I thought if I just went for a walk in a public place, I'd be fine. You wanted to feel normal. The observation seemed to catch her off guard. Yes, I suppose I did. Jamal thought about what Marcus had said, about Victoria being terrifying. Looking at her now, he saw something different. Not terror, but terrible isolation. The kind that came from being at the top with no one to trust, no one to call when you needed help. The question came out before he could stop it. You don't have friends, do you? Real friends, not business contacts or professional relationships. Victoria's expression hardened. That's an inappropriate question, Mr. Thompson. Maybe, but it's true, isn't it? For a moment, he thought she might call security, might fire him on the spot for insubordination. Instead, she sat back in her chair, and something that might have been humor flickered in her eyes. You're either very brave or very stupid. I'm a single father. I gave up on being either brave or stupid when my daughter was born. Now I'm just practical. And practically speaking? Victoria's voice was careful and guarded. Practically speaking, you need help. Not the kind money can buy. The kind that comes from actually having someone on your side. Jamal met her eyes steadily. I'm not here because of your money or your position. I'm here because you said please when you needed help. And because my daughter sees things other people miss. She said you looked sad under the pretty. She's usually right about people. The silence stretched between them, filled with everything neither of them was saying. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe Wednesday's pretending doesn't have to be just Wednesday. If Blake is watching, if he has people feeding him information, maybe we give them something to report. You with someone, building a life that doesn't include him. You're offering to be my fake boyfriend." There was no inflection in her voice, no indication of what she thought of the idea. "I'm offering to be your friend. The boyfriend thing? That's just logistics." Jamal stood, preparing to leave. "Think about it. You know where to find me. 2 floors down, drowning in unsolicited manuscripts and trying to convince the acquisitions team that literary fiction still matters." He was almost to the door when she spoke again. "Why would you do this? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything." Jamal turned back. "Because Wednesday, when you asked for help, you didn't demand it. You asked. You said, 'Please.' And because my daughter thought you looked sad under the pretty, and she's usually right about people." He shrugged, the gesture more vulnerable than he intended. "And maybe because being alone when you're scared isn't something anyone should have to do. Not even untouchable CEOs." He left before she could respond, before she could see that his hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline of essentially offering himself as part of a situation he did not fully understand. The elevator ride down to 34 felt longer than usual. He had just made either the best or worst decision of his life, and he had no idea which. The call came 3 days later at 8:30 on a Saturday morning. Jamal was making pancakes. Maya was watching cartoons in her pajamas. His phone lit up with a number he had entered into his contacts but never expected to actually use. Victoria Ashford, personal cell. He stepped into the kitchen, away from Maya's hearing before answering. "Victoria." Her voice was tight with stress. "Jamal, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. Are you free this afternoon around 3? He thought about his plans. Grocery shopping, laundry, maybe the park if the weather held. Nothing that could not be rearranged. "Yes. What do you need?" "I need you to meet my mother." The request was so unexpected that Jamal actually pulled the phone away from his ear to make sure he had heard correctly. "Your mother?" "She's in town for the weekend, staying at the plaza. She called last night and insisted on taking me to tea." Victoria's voice dropped lower. "Blake's mother and mine are old friends. They've been talking. My mother has opinions about my life choices, and if I show up alone, she's going to spend 2 hours lecturing me about settling down and making better relationship decisions." "So you want me to be your buffer?" "I want you to be evidence that I'm not the disaster she thinks I am." There was a pause, and when Victoria spoke again, her voice was quieter, more vulnerable. "I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. Forget I asked." "No." Jamal surprised himself with the firmness of his response. "Don't forget you asked. What time should I meet you?" "You're serious?" "I offered to help." "This is help." He heard what might have been a laugh, soft and surprised. The Palm Court at the plaza, 3 o'clock. She hesitated. "Jamal, my mother is difficult. She has opinions about everything, and she won't be shy about sharing them. I raise a 6-year-old who asks why the sky is blue and then immediately wants to know why blue is called blue. I think I can handle difficult." After they hung up, Jamal stood in his kitchen, staring at his phone, wondering what exactly he had just agreed to. Meeting the mother. That was a milestone even in fake relationships. His usual Saturday babysitter was attending a wedding. His backup had the flu. By 2 o'clock, Jamal had exhausted his options and was left with one choice: bring Maya along and hope for the best. He dressed carefully, choosing clothes that split the difference between too casual and trying too hard. Dark jeans, a button-down shirt in deep blue, his good jacket that he usually reserved for acquisition meetings with important agents. Maya insisted on wearing her favorite dress, the purple one with the sparkly butterflies. Jamal did not have the heart to argue. The Plaza Hotel rose like a monument to gilded excess on the corner of Fifth Avenue. Jamal felt distinctly out of place, walking through the ornate entrance with his daughter's hand in his. This was not his world. His world was cramped apartments and grocery store birthday cakes, public school fundraisers and dollar pizza slices. The Palm Court was a symphony of white marble and crystal, towering palm trees and the gentle clink of expensive china. Jamal spotted Victoria immediately. She was sitting at a corner table with a woman who could only be her mother. Both of them were dressed in the kind of elegant simplicity that cost more than Jamal's monthly rent. Victoria saw him and stood. Something like relief flashed across her face before she smoothed it into a smile. She was wearing a dress in soft gray, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked more like the woman from the park than the CEO from her office. It made something in Jamal's chest tighten unexpectedly. "Jamal, thank you for coming." She was acutely aware of Maya pressing against his side, suddenly shy in the face of such overwhelming elegance. Of course. He was acutely aware of Maya pressing against his side, suddenly shy in the face of such overwhelming elegance. "I hope it's okay that I brought Maya. Childcare fell through. It's perfect." Victoria crouched down to Maya's level, that same gentle transformation Jamal had witnessed in the park happening again. "Hi, Maya. It's good to see you again. I'd like you to meet my mother. She's kind of like a queen." They approached the table, and Victoria's mother rose with the kind of grace that came from decades of practice. Dr. Grace Ashford was in her late 60s, elegantly slender with the same ice blue eyes as her daughter and silver blonde hair styled with precision. She examined Jamal with the intensity of someone conducting a military inspection. "Mother, this is Jamal Thompson, and this is his daughter, Maya. Jamal, Maya, my mother, Dr. Grace Ashford." "Mr. Thompson?" Grace extended her hand. Jamal shook it with a grip that was surprisingly firm. "A pleasure to meet you, Dr. Ashford." "The pleasure is mine." Grace's gaze shifted to Maya, and something softened in her expression. "What a lovely dress, dear." "Thank you." Maya executed a small curtsy that she had learned from somewhere, and Jamal saw Grace's lips twitch with amusement. "Well, shall we sit?" The next 2 hours were a masterclass in upper-class interrogation disguised as polite conversation. Grace asked questions with surgical precision. Where was Jamal from? Pennsylvania originally, a small town near Pittsburgh. What did his parents do? His father had been a plumber, his mother a nurse at the local hospital. Both passed now. How had he and Victoria met? At work, which was technically true. What were his intentions? That one was harder to navigate. Through it all, Maya was the unexpected bridge. She charmed Grace with the unself-conscious honesty of childhood, asking about the tea sandwiches, which she called tiny food for fancy people, approaching the elaborate pastries with the serious attention of a scholar. When Grace asked what Maya wanted to be when she grew up, Maya announced she was going to be a pigeon scientist, which made even Grace laugh. She has spirit. Grace's tone was approving. That's good. The world needs more spirit. She keeps me on my toes. And her mother? The question was casual, but Jamal felt its weight. Not in the picture. Her choice. He kept his voice neutral and factual. My ex-wife decided motherhood wasn't what she wanted. She left when Maya was 2. It's been just the 2 of us since then. Grace studied him for a long moment. Jamal had the unsettling feeling she was seeing past every defense, every carefully maintained boundary. That must be difficult. We manage. Maya makes it easy. Daddy's the best daddy ever, Maya announced through a mouthful of lemon tart. He learned to braid hair from YouTube. He cooks better than restaurants. He can even fix a broken faucet. Can he now? Grace's eyes glinted with something that might have been respect. That's resourceful. Beside him, Jamal felt Victoria relax fractionally, and he realized she had been waiting for her mother's verdict. This had been a test, and somehow he had passed. When the tea service finally wound down, Grace stood with the same elegant economy of movement she had displayed throughout. "Victoria, walk me to my car." She turned to Jamal with something approaching warmth. "Mr. Thompson, it was illuminating to meet you. Maya, you are a delightful young lady. Thank you for the tiny food," Maya said solemnly. They parted in the plaza's marble lobby, Grace and Victoria disappearing toward the Fifth Avenue entrance, while Jamal and Maya waited by the ornate main staircase. Maya was already fading, the sugar and excitement giving way to exhaustion. "Can I sit?" she asked, and Jamal helped her settle on one of the velvet benches that lined the wall. "You did great today, kiddo. Mrs. Ashford was nice, not scary like she looked." Victoria returned alone, her expression unreadable. She had put her armor back on, her posture rigid, her face composed, but her eyes told a different story. "That went well." She sat beside them with a weariness that seemed to settle into her bones. "By my mother's standards, anyway." "She liked you. She liked Maya." "The jury's still out on me." "She liked Maya," Victoria agreed. "But with you, from my mother, that's practically a marriage proposal. What did she say after?" Victoria was quiet for a moment. "She asked me if it was real, us, if we were actually together, or if I was staging a show for her benefit." Jamal's heart rate kicked up. "What did you tell her?" "I told her I didn't know yet." Victoria turned to look at him, and the vulnerability in her expression made his breath catch. "Is that okay? That I don't know?" "Yeah," Jamal heard himself say. "That's okay." What he did not say, what he was only beginning to realize, was that he did not know either. That somewhere between the park bench and this moment, between Maya's acceptance and Grace's scrutiny, something had shifted. The pretending felt less like pretending and more like possibility. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. The morning after their plaza performance arrived with the peculiar weight of crossed thresholds. Victoria's email sat in Jamal's inbox at 6:15, 2 hours before most people began their workday. The subject line was empty. The message itself contained 3 sentences. "Thank you again for yesterday. My mother called this morning to tell me you're surprisingly grounded for someone in publishing. From her, that's practically canonical approval. I owe you dinner. My treat. Let me know when works for you. V." Jamal read it twice before Maya appeared in his doorway, already dressed for Sunday morning cartoons. Her hair was a nest of curls that would require significant negotiation. "Who are you smiling at?" "Nobody. Come here, let's fix this hair situation. Are we seeing Victoria today?" "No, sweetheart. Why do you ask?" Maya climbed onto his lap with practiced ease, handing him the hairbrush and purple scrunchie. "Because you're smiling at your phone. You only smile at your phone when someone makes you happy." Jamal started working through the tangles with gentle persistence. "Victoria's just a friend. Friends can make you happy. That's the point of friends." Maya tilted her head, making his job harder. "I like her. She talks to me like I'm real." "What do you mean?" "Some grown-ups talk to kids like we're pets, like we're cute but not smart. Victoria talks to me like I'm a person who knows things." Jamal's hand stilled. The observation was accurate in ways that mattered. Victoria had spoken to Maya with genuine interest, without condescension. That was rarer than it should be. "You're very observant, you know that? I'm smart like you." Maya delivered this assessment without ego, simply stating fact. "Can we have pancakes?" "We had pancakes yesterday." "But these would be Sunday pancakes. Those are different." Despite everything, Jamal laughed. "Sure, sweetheart. Sunday pancakes it is." Later, after breakfast and cartoons and a negotiation about whether socks were truly necessary on a Sunday, Jamal composed his response. He deleted 3 versions before settling on honesty. Maya and I are free Tuesday evening if that works. She's already asked when we're seeing you again, so fair warning, you've made an impression. Let me know where and when. The response came within minutes. Tuesday works. How do you feel about cooking? I have a kitchen that's criminally underused and enough ingredients to make something edible. 6 o'clock. I'll send my address. And Jamal, I meant it about owing you. This isn't pity or obligation. I'd actually like to see you both again. That last line carried weight that shifted something in his chest. He looked at Maya, who was building an elaborate fort from couch cushions, and wondered what exactly he was leading them into. Tuesday arrived carrying the anxiety of first dates that were not technically dates. Jamal left work exactly at 5, ignoring Marcus's knowing look when he declined their usual Tuesday evening drink. He collected Maya from after-school care with minutes to spare. Where are we going? To Victoria's apartment. She's making us dinner. Maya's eyes went wide. At her house? Like a real visit? Like a real visit. Do I need to wear fancy clothes? Jamal looked down at her school uniform, a plaid jumper over white shirt already showing signs of a day's worth of 6-year-old adventures. You're perfect as you are, but maybe we should stop home and change into something comfortable. They did. Maya selected her favorite jeans and a purple sweater that matched her ever-present scrunchie. Jamal opted for casual but neat, the kind of clothes that said he had made an effort without trying too hard. Victoria's building stood on the Upper West Side, a pre-war structure with elegant lines and a doorman who checked his list before allowing entry. The elevator was the old-fashioned kind, with brass fixtures and a mirror that made Jamal hyper-aware of his reflection. Maya pressed her nose against the glass. This is fancy. Her whisper carried reverence. Yeah, it is. Victoria answered on the first knock. She wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked younger this way, more approachable, and Jamal felt his nervousness ease fractionally. Hi, she smiled at Maya first. I'm so glad you came. I made cookies earlier, but I think I might have burned them slightly. That's okay. Maya's tone was reassuring. Daddy burns things all the time. I do not burn things all the time. You burned the grilled cheese last week. That was one time. Victoria laughed, stepping aside to let them in. Come on in. Welcome to the evidence of my terrible domestic skills. The apartment surprised him. Jamal had expected cold minimalism, the kind of showplace that appeared in architectural magazines. Instead, Victoria's home felt warm. Books lined the walls. Comfortable-looking furniture filled the space. Art hung everywhere, pieces that looked personal rather than purchased for investment. The kitchen was visible from the living area, a large space with marble counters and professional-grade appliances that did indeed look underused. This is beautiful. It's too big for one person. Victoria gestured toward the living room. Make yourselves comfortable. I have coloring books and crayons if Maya wants to entertain herself while we cook. Fair warning, I am not good at this. I can follow a recipe, but barely. What are we making? I was thinking pasta. Something hard to completely destroy. She pulled ingredients from the refrigerator. Fresh pasta, vegetables, cream, cheese. I have wine for us and juice boxes for Maya. And if this all goes terribly wrong, there's a Thai place downstairs that delivers. Maya had already found the coloring books, settling herself at the coffee table with the intense focus she brought to all artistic endeavors. Jamal washed his hands and joined Victoria at the counter. For the next hour, they worked in a rhythm that usually took months to develop. Victoria chopped vegetables while Jamal handled the sauce. Their movements coordinated without much discussion. She asked about his day, and he told her about the manuscript he had championed that the acquisitions team had rejected. The politics of publishing that sometimes felt like warfare conducted through conference calls. It's brutal. Victoria agreed, adding cream to the pan. The business side. Everyone thinks publishing is about books and art, and it is, but it's also about profit margins and market trends and keeping the board happy. Do you miss it? The editorial side, before you were running everything? Something flickered across Victoria's face, nostalgia mixed with something harder to identify. I loved finding new voices, championing books that mattered. But my father built this company from nothing. When he got sick, someone had to take over. I was the only child, the only option. That's a lot of pressure. It's suffocating sometimes. She looked up at him, and the honesty in her eyes was startling. People think power is freedom, but it's the opposite. Every decision affects hundreds of employees, thousands of authors. One wrong move, and people lose their jobs, their dreams. She shook her head. I'm sorry, you didn't sign up for my existential crisis. I asked. Jamal's voice was gentle. And for what it's worth, I think you're doing an incredible job. The company's thriving. The company's surviving. There's a difference. She tasted the sauce, added salt. Tell me about Maya's mother, if that's not too personal. The deflection was deliberate, a retreat from vulnerability, but Jamal answered anyway. Stephanie. We met in college, got married too young, had Maya even younger. She tried, I think, but motherhood wasn't what she expected. She felt trapped, suffocated by the routine of it all. He watched Maya coloring, her tongue stuck out in concentration. One day, she just said she couldn't do it anymore, packed a bag, moved to Seattle, sent divorce papers a month later. I'm sorry. I'm not. Not anymore. Jamal started plating the pasta. If someone doesn't want to be there, it's better they leave. Maya deserves people who choose her every single day. She's lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have her. She makes everything make sense. They ate at the dining table, which Victoria confessed she had never actually used for dining before. Maya entertained them with a detailed account of first-grade social dynamics. Apparently, Hannah Miller had organic fruit roll-ups from Whole Foods, which conferred a status approaching royalty. Noted. Victoria's tone was grave. Organic snacks equal power. Also those yogurt tubes, but only the good kind, not the ones from the regular store. After dinner, Maya gravitated back to the coloring books. Jamal helped Victoria clean up. They worked in comfortable silence until her phone buzzed on the counter. They both tensed. She checked the screen, and her face went pale. What is it? Text from a number I don't recognize. She turned the phone so he could see. The message was brief and chilling. Saw you at the plaza. New boyfriend and his daughter. We need to talk. D. Blake. Jamal kept his voice low. Has to be. No one else would. She stopped, steadied herself. I'm sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. That he'd come after you. After Maya. He doesn't know where I live, and your doorman has my name on the list for tonight. If Blake tries anything here, security will stop him. You don't know him. You don't know what he's capable of. Victoria's hands were shaking as she set the phone down. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe you should... We're not leaving because he sent a threatening text. Jamal kept his voice firm but gentle. That's what he wants. To isolate you, to make you feel like you can't have anyone in your life. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you jumped in my lap and trusted me. He caught her hands, squeezed gently. I meant what I said. I'm here. We're here. And one creepy text isn't going to change that. Victoria looked at him for a long moment. Something shifted in her expression. Gratitude mixed with something deeper, something that made Jamal's pulse quicken. Thank you. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm not used to people staying. Get used to it. The moment hung between them, waited with possibility, until Maya's voice broke through. "Daddy, can we show Victoria my drawing?" They moved to the living room where Maya had created an elaborate crayon masterpiece. A purple dinosaur appeared to be befriending a flock of pigeons. Victoria examined it with proper seriousness. "Tell me about this. What's happening here?" "The dinosaur is teaching the pigeons to be brave." Because sometimes small things need to learn from big things. But also sometimes big things need to learn from small things. That's very wise. I know. Maya delivered this assessment without arrogance, simply stating observable fact. They stayed longer than planned, the evening stretching into bedtime territory. When Jamal finally announced they needed to head home, Maya protested with the indignation of someone being dragged from paradise. "But we didn't have dessert yet." The slightly burned cookies, Victoria remembered. "Hold on." She disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a tin. The cookies were indeed slightly burned around the edges, but still looked edible. "For the subway ride home. And Maya, thank you for coming. You made this place feel less empty." Maya hugged her without prompting. Small arms wrapped around Victoria's waist with unself-conscious affection. Jamal saw Victoria's eyes close, saw her hand come up to rest on Maya's head with tenderness that made his throat tight. At the door, Victoria caught his arm. "That text. I'm going to forward it to my lawyer, add it to the file. But if anything else happens, if he contacts you directly, I'll call you immediately. And Jamal." She waited until he met her eyes. "This was nice. All of it. Let's do it again soon." "Yeah." His voice came out softer than he intended. "I'd like that." The anonymous forum posts appeared Thursday morning. Marcus found them first, pulling Jamal into his office before the workday fully started. His expression carried the weight of bad news delivered reluctantly. "You need to see this." The company's internal forum was supposed to be anonymous, a space for employees to discuss everything from acquisitions to executive decisions. The thread at the top had been posted overnight. The title was innocuous enough, Office Speculation, but the contents made Jamal's stomach drop. Anonymous users were discussing Victoria's sudden interest in a mid-level analyst from literary fiction. Speculation ranged from the mundane to the malicious. One poster wondered if Jamal was sleeping his way to a promotion. Another suggested the child he brought to the plaza was not even his, that the whole thing was some elaborate scheme to manipulate Victoria's emotions through fabricated sympathy. "It gets worse. Scroll down." Marcus's voice was grim. Jamal did. The later posts included details that should have been private. Mentions of their plaza visit, descriptions of Maya's purple dress, even speculation about whether Jamal's ex-wife knew her daughter was being used as a prop in some corporate seduction. His hand gripped the mouse hard enough to hurt. "Maya is my daughter, I know that. Anyone who knows you knows that." Marcus studied him with careful attention. "But whoever posted this, they're trying to hurt you, both of you. Who would do this? That's the question, isn't it?" Marcus lowered his voice further. "There's been talk for months that Victoria has enemies inside the company. People who think she's too young for the position, too ambitious, too something. If someone wanted to destabilize her, going after her personal life would be one way to do it." Jamal thought about Blake's text message, about the 3 executives Victoria had fired for feeding information to her stalker, about the patient, methodical way a man with connections and money might work to isolate the woman who had rejected him. "I need to call Victoria." "Before you do," Marcus caught his arm. "Is it real? You and her? Because if it is, you need to be ready for this to get worse before it gets better." Jamal met his friend's eyes steadily. "It's complicated." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now." Victoria answered on the second ring. Her voice carried the sharp efficiency of someone already managing multiple crises. "I've already seen it. I traced the IP addresses. 4 more people with ties to Blake's family. I'm firing them this afternoon." "Victoria, this is escalating. He's not just following you anymore. He's actively trying to destroy your reputation. I know. Her voice dropped. Something raw bleeding through the professional armor. I'm meeting with my lawyer in an hour. We have enough now for a restraining order. Documented harassment. Evidence of a coordinated campaign. Even his father's connections won't be able to make this go away. What about Maya? What about me? If he's putting our names out there, I'm handling it. I sent an email to the entire company this morning addressing the rumors directly. I acknowledged that I formed a personal friendship with an employee, but made clear it has no impact on professional decisions. Anyone who continues to spread defamatory content about employees or their families will be terminated immediately and face legal action. Jamal processed this. It was decisive and aggressive, exactly what he would expect from the woman who ran a publishing empire. But it also painted a target on both of them. He's going to retaliate. I know. Victoria's exhale was audible through the phone. Jamal, if you want to step back, I understand. This is more than you signed up for. I'm not stepping back. The words came out with certainty that surprised him. We talked about this. I'm not running because things got hard. Things are going to get harder. Then we deal with it together. The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Jamal wondered if the call had dropped. When Victoria spoke again, her voice was quieter, more vulnerable. I don't deserve you. Let me be the judge of that. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Victoria's lawyer had compiled months of documentation. Text messages, surveillance evidence, witness statements from the 3 fired executives who had been granted immunity in exchange for testimony. The pattern was clear and damning. Jamal was not present for the hearing itself, but Victoria called him immediately after. Her voice carried relief, mixed with something that sounded like exhaustion. It's done. Blake has to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, my office. No contact directly or through third parties. If he violates it, he'll be arrested immediately. That's good news. It should be. She did not sound convinced. But I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. I know him, Jamal. He won't accept defeat. He'll find another way. Her prediction proved accurate faster than either of them anticipated. The 2 a.m. alarm shattered sleep with the violence of broken glass. Jamal woke to his phone buzzing insistently, Victoria's name on the screen. He answered before his mind fully caught up. Jamal. Her voice was tight with controlled panic. Blake tried to get into the building. The doorman stopped him at the lobby, but he made it past the first security checkpoint. He was screaming my name. The police are here now, but... I'm coming. You don't have to. I'm coming. He was already out of bed, pulling on clothes, checking on Maya, who was still asleep despite the phone's buzzing. He called Mrs. Patterson, their elderly neighbor, who arrived within 10 minutes, wrapped in a bathrobe and carrying Mr. Whiskers in a carrier. Family emergency. I'll be back soon. Go, we'll be fine. The doorman looked shaken when Jamal arrived. Police were taking statements. Victoria stood near the elevators wrapped in a coat over pajamas. Her hair was down, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger and more frightened than he had ever seen her. He's gone. They escorted him out before he could get to the elevators. She was trembling. But Jamal? He left this. She held up a folded piece of paper. The note was brief, written in neat handwriting that somehow made the words more threatening. You think he'll protect you? He's using you like he used his dying wife for sympathy. I know the truth. Everyone will. Jamal's jaw tightened. He's trying to poison you against me. I know. Victoria's voice was steady despite the shaking. The police have it now. It's evidence. Another restraining order violation. Combined with everything else, my lawyer says he could face jail time. They rode the elevator to her floor in silence. The door to her apartment stood open. Security had cleared it, but the violation lingered in the air. Someone had been here, had gotten close. The safety of her home had been breached. Maya woke up. The words came out small and scared. Not a question, but a statement of fact. She heard the alarm. Mrs. Patterson is with her. She's safe. Victoria sank onto her couch, the adrenaline draining away and leaving exhaustion in its wake. This is never going to end, is it? He's never going to stop. Jamal sat beside her. He will, because you're not alone in this anymore. She turned to look at him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. What if being with me puts Maya in danger? What if he goes after her to get to me? Then we make sure he can't. How? By not giving him the power to make us afraid. By keeping her close and safe, and teaching her that the bad things in the world don't get to decide how we live. Victoria leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. They sat like that until dawn began to break over Manhattan, until the fear subsided enough to breathe, until Victoria's phone rang with her lawyer confirming that Blake had been arrested for violating the restraining order. The office confrontation happened 3 days later. Jamal was in a meeting when Marcus burst in, his face flushed with exertion. You need to come to the lobby now. Blake Morrison stood in the center of Ashford Publishing's marble entrance. He wore an expensive suit that hung slightly wrong on his frame, as if he had lost weight recently. His eyes carried the feverish intensity of someone who had not been sleeping. The polished predator from the park was gone, replaced by something more dangerous, a man who had lost touch with the boundary between persistence and madness. Where is she? His voice echoed through the space. I know she's here. I need to talk to her. I need to make her understand. Jamal stepped forward, positioning himself between Blake and the hallway to the elevators. Blake, you need to leave. You're violating the restraining order. Police are already on their way. Blake's attention snapped to him. Something ugly twisted across his features. You're the one who poisoned her against me, playing the single father, using your daughter to manipulate her sympathy. His voice rose, cracking with rage. I know what you're doing. I see right through you. I'm not doing anything except caring about someone who deserves better than you. She belongs with me. Blake took a step forward. Security guards tensed. I waited for her. I supported her when her father was dying. I was there when she needed someone. And now she throws me away for some nobody analyst? She made her choice. You need to accept it. No. Blake shook his head violently. No, she's confused. You've confused her. If I could just talk to her, explain. Blake Morrison? A new voice cut through the confrontation. Detective Morrison, the same officer who had responded to the building alarm, flanked by uniformed police. You're under arrest for violation of a restraining order, criminal trespass, and harassment. Hands where I can see them. For a moment, Blake looked like he might run. Then his shoulders slumped, the manic energy draining away and leaving behind something that almost looked like defeat. I just wanted to talk to her. His voice was small now, lost. I just wanted her to understand. They cuffed him without resistance, read him his rights, led him toward the elevator bay. As he passed Jamal, Blake's eyes met his. There was something almost like recognition in them. She'll get tired of you too. Eventually, they always do. Jamal watched them take him away, feeling no triumph, only exhaustion. Victoria appeared in the doorway of the stairwell. Her face was pale but composed. She had been watching from a safe distance, waiting to see if she needed to intervene. Is it over? He's in custody. Between the restraining order violation and everything else, he's not getting out anytime soon. Victoria nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the elevator where Blake had disappeared. I keep waiting to feel relieved, but I just feel empty. Something like that will take time. The fear doesn't just evaporate because the threat is gone. How do you know? Because I'm still scared too. He pulled her closer. But we're here. We're together. And that's enough for now. The call came on a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after Blake's arrest. Jamal was helping Maya with homework when his phone lit up with a number he had not seen in over 2 years. The area code was Seattle, his ex-wife's city. He stepped into the kitchen before answering. Stephanie. Jamal. Her voice carried the same careful distance it always had, as if emotion was something that happened to other people. I'm calling because someone contacted me, offered money for information about you, about why I left, about Maya. Blake Morrison, you know him? He's been harassing someone I care about. I'm not surprised he reached out to you. I didn't take the money. Stephanie's voice hardened slightly. I may have left, but I'm not going to help some stalker build a case against you. You're a good father. Maya's lucky to have you. The acknowledgement landed with unexpected weight. Thank you for calling.
And for refusing him.
Jamal, be careful. He sounded dangerous, like someone who doesn't understand the word no. I know, we're handling it. After they hung up, Jamal stood in his kitchen, processing the conversation, the warning, the strange validation from someone who had walked away but apparently still cared enough to refuse cooperation with a predator. Everything okay? Victoria had arrived while he was on the phone. She had her own key now. Another threshold crossed without much discussion. She looked at his face and read the tension there. That was Maya's mother. Blake contacted her, tried to buy information. What did she tell him? Nothing. She refused and called to warn me. Jamal turned to face her. Maya's going to want to know her mother called. I need to tell her. They found Maya in her room, surrounded by purple crayons and drawings. She looked up when they entered, her expression shifting from concentration to curiosity. Hey, baby, can we talk for a minute? What's wrong? Your mom called today. Maya went very still. Does she want to come back? No, sweetheart. Jamal sat beside her on the bed. But she wanted to make sure we're safe. Someone bad tried to get her to say mean things about us, and she said no. That's something, I guess. Maya's voice was small but steady. Victoria watched from the doorway, seeing the honesty between father and daughter, the way Jamal did not hide hard truths, but delivered them with gentleness. This was what good parenting looked like, not protection from reality, but preparation for it. You're a good father. Victoria's words came out soft, meant for Jamal alone. Say that looking at me. He turned to meet her eyes. You're a good father. And a good man. She paused, gathering courage. And I'm falling in love with you. Say that last part again. I'm falling in love with you, Jamal Thompson. The words hung in the air between them. No longer pretending. No longer logistics, just truth. The call came on a Friday at 2:30 in the afternoon. Jamal was reviewing a manuscript when his phone rang with the school's number. He answered, expecting a routine notification about a schedule change or an upcoming event. The principal's voice shattered that expectation. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come to the school immediately. There's been an incident with Maya. His blood turned to ice. What kind of incident? Is she hurt? She's fine. She's safe. The principal's voice faltered. Mr. Thompson, about an hour ago, a woman came to pick up Maya. She had identification from Ashford Publishing, claimed there was a family emergency. She knew details about your work schedule, Maya's teacher's name, even your home address. Jamal was already grabbing his jacket, his body moving before his mind caught up. Where's my daughter? That's what I'm trying to explain. The woman left with Maya, but your emergency contact, Mrs.
Patterson,
Called about 15 minutes ago to confirm details about next week's school play. When we told her Maya had already been picked up by your assistant, she said you don't have an assistant. The world narrowed to a single point of focus. Where is my daughter? We've called the police. They're on their way. Mr. Thompson, I'm so sorry. We followed protocol. The woman had documentation. She knew. He hung up without letting her finish. His hands shook as he called Victoria. She answered immediately, as if she had been waiting. Jamal, what's wrong? Someone took Maya from school. They had fake credentials from Ashford. They knew everything. My schedule, her teacher, our address. Oh, God. Victoria's voice cracked. I'm coming. Where are you? On my way to the school. I'll meet you there. And Jamal? She paused, and he heard the terror in her voice that matched his own. We'll find her. I promise you, we'll find her. The school was chaos when Jamal arrived. Police cars lined the circular drive. Parents clustered in worried groups. The principal stood near the entrance, talking to a detective who looked like he had seen too many variations of this particular nightmare. Jamal pushed through the crowd with single-minded focus. My daughter, Maya Thompson, where is she? The detective turned. His badge read Morrison, but no relation was apparent to Blake's family. His eyes carried professional sympathy that did nothing to ease the terror constricting Jamal's chest. Mr. Thompson, I'm Detective James Morrison. We're working to locate your daughter. The woman who took her was driving a silver Honda Civic. We have the license plate from security footage, and an APB is out. Security footage. License plates. Professional terminology that meant nothing when his 6-year-old was somewhere in this city with a stranger who had been paid to take her. Who was she? The woman. We're still identifying her. But Mr. Thompson, based on the timeline and the level of detail she had about your life, this appears connected to Blake Morrison's harassment campaign against Ms. Ashford. Victoria arrived then. She had clearly run from wherever she had been. Her hair was disheveled, her face pale with the kind of fear that comes from knowing you are the reason a child is in danger. Any word? Jamal could barely look at her. The rational part of his mind knew this was not her fault, but the part that was drowning in terror needed someone to blame. They're looking. His voice came out flat, drained of everything except the need to find Maya. Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted from fear to something else, confusion mixed with desperate hope. It's a number I don't recognize, she answered on speaker. Hello? Ms. Ashford? This is Patricia Walsh. I'm the manager at the Morrison Hotel on 5th Avenue. I believe I have your friend's daughter here. The words took a moment to register. Then Jamal's world tilted back towards something that might eventually become stability. Where is she? Is she okay? She's fine. She's in my office right now with hotel security. Patricia's voice carried a mixture of professionalism and concern. There was a woman who brought her here, said she was waiting for further instructions. But your daughter told one of my staff that her daddy didn't call, that the woman wasn't someone she knew. We detained the woman for police questioning and called you immediately. Jamal looked at Detective Morrison, who was already radioing the information to his team. We're on our way. Don't let her out of your sight. Wouldn't dream of it. The hotel was 12 blocks away. They made it in 7 minutes. Victoria had called a car service that arrived within 90 seconds, and the driver seemed to understand that speed mattered more than traffic laws. Jamal's hands were shaking. His breath came in shallow gasps that he could not quite control. Victoria reached for his hand, and he let her, needing the anchor of human contact, even as his mind spun through scenarios of what could have happened, what might still be happening. The Morrison hotel manager met them in the lobby. Patricia Walsh was a woman in her 40s with the competent bearing of someone trained to handle crises. She led them past curious guests to a back office where Maya sat on a leather couch. A stuffed bear someone had given her was clutched tight in her small hands. Her eyes were red, but dry. "Daddy." She launched herself at him with enough force to nearly knock him over. Jamal caught her, held her so tight she squeaked in protest. He buried his face in her hair and tried to remember how to breathe around the knot in his chest. "I've got you. You're safe. I've got you." "I told them." Maya's voice was muffled against his shoulder. "I told them you didn't call, and she wasn't your person."
"Just like you taught me." Jamal's throat closed around a sob he could not quite contain. "You did perfect. You were so brave, sweetheart. So brave." Victoria stood back, watching the reunion with something devastated in her expression. When Maya finally loosened her grip enough to look around, she spotted Victoria and reached for her too. Victoria. Victoria knelt beside them, her hands shaking as she touched Maya's face, her shoulders, confirming the child was real and whole. "I'm so sorry. Maya, I'm so sorry this happened to you." "It's okay." Maya's voice carried the resilience of childhood, the ability to process trauma and set it aside for examination later. "The hotel lady gave me juice and the teddy bear, and the police said they were going to catch the bad woman." Police questioning revealed what Jamal had already suspected. The woman was an actress named Rachel Porter, hired through an intermediary with instructions and payment that traced back to accounts connected to Blake Morrison. She claimed ignorance of the true nature of her assignment, said she had been told it was a family emergency pickup arranged by a friend. But text messages on her phone told a different story. Detailed information about Maya's school schedule, Jamal's work hours, even a physical description of Mrs. Patterson with instructions to avoid her. Blake had been planning this for weeks, maybe months. The detective who briefed them was the same tired-looking man from the school. "We have enough to arrest Morrison for conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Combined with the restraining order violations, he's looking at serious charges. He may not have been physically present, but orchestrating this counts." "Will it stick?" Jamal heard the question come out of his mouth, heard the skepticism born of watching privileged people escape consequences. His father is a federal judge. He has resources, connections. "Ma'am, I don't care if his father is the Supreme Court Chief Justice. What he did to this child crosses every line there is. We'll make it stick." Blake was arrested that evening at his apartment. According to the report that reached them later, he had been pacing, waiting for updates from Rachel Porter that would never come. When police broke down his door, he was on the phone with his lawyer, trying to arrange bail before charges were even filed. The confidence of someone who had never truly been held accountable for anything. They took him in handcuffs. He was screaming that he just wanted to talk to Victoria, that this was all a misunderstanding, that if everyone would just listen to him, they would understand he was the victim here. That night, they gathered at Victoria's penthouse because none of them could bear to be alone. Maya fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by adrenaline crash. They carried her to Victoria's bed and surrounded her with pillows, creating a fortress of safety that felt inadequate against what had already happened. Jamal and Victoria retreated to the balcony. The October air carried winter's first real promise. That particular Manhattan cold that smelled like endings and beginnings in equal measure. "This is my fault." Victoria's voice was hollow. "If I hadn't involved you, if I hadn't—" "Stop." Jamal's tone was sharper than he intended. "This is Blake's fault. Only Blake's. You didn't ask to be stalked. You didn't ask for any of this." "But Maya is safe because you helped me teach her what to do in dangerous situations. Because you've been part of her life these past weeks, and she trusts you enough to trust her own instincts." Victoria shook her head. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks. "You should hate me." "I could never hate you." Jamal reached for her hand, held it tight.
I'm scared. I'm angry. But not at you. Never at you. They sat in silence for a long time. The city stretched out below them, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in its towers and apartments. I want you to stay here, both of you, until this is over, until Blake is locked away and can't hurt anyone else. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. This building has security, cameras, doormen who know your face now. She paused, her voice cracked. I can't sleep knowing you're out there unprotected. Jamal thought about his small apartment in Hell's Kitchen, about the fire escape that anyone could climb, about the front door with its single lock that a determined person could break through. It's a big step, living together, Maya seeing us together every day. That changes things. I know. Victoria turned to look at him, her face raw with emotion. But I need you here. I need to know you're safe. Both of you. Is that the only reason? The question hung in the air, weighted with everything neither of them had fully acknowledged yet. No, Victoria admitted. It's not the only reason, but it's the reason that matters right now. Jamal looked through the glass doors to where Maya slept, small and trusting and completely unaware of how close she had come to something unthinkable. Okay, we'll stay. Victoria's exhale was ragged with relief. She leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. They stayed that way until the first light of dawn crept over the Manhattan skyline. The call from Eleanor Morrison came 2 days later. Jamal was sorting through the logistics of temporarily relocating his life when his phone displayed an unknown number. Mr. Thompson, this is Eleanor Morrison, Blake's mother. He nearly hung up. Instead, something made him listen. I'm not supposed to contact you. My husband would be furious if he knew, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Why are you calling me? Because I'm scared. The admission came out rushed and desperate. I don't know what my son has become, what he's capable of. When I heard what happened to your daughter, She stopped, composed herself with visible effort, even through the phone line. I wanted you to know that I knew nothing about it, that I would never have condoned it. And I wanted to warn you. Warn me about what? Blake isn't thinking clearly anymore. He's convinced himself that if he can just make Victoria understand, she'll come back. He doesn't see what he's doing as wrong. He sees it as fighting for the woman he loves. Jamal's grip on the phone tightened. He kidnapped my daughter. I know, and I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get him help, trying to convince him to accept treatment, but he won't listen. His father thinks this will all blow over, that the family name will protect him like it always has. It won't. Not this time. I hope you're right. Eleanor's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Please be careful, Mr. Thompson. Keep your daughter close. And tell Victoria that I'm sorry. Sorry for everything. The line went dead. Jamal stood in Victoria's guest room that was becoming his temporary home and wondered what else Blake Morrison was capable of when even his own mother was frightened of him. The trial was set for 3 months later. February brought the kind of cold that made Manhattan feel less like a city and more like an endurance test. Blake's lawyers argued diminished capacity, pointed to childhood abandonment that had shaped his psychology, painted a picture of a man whose obsession was illness rather than malice. It did not work. The prosecution presented months of documentation, text messages that escalated from pleading to threatening, bank transfers to Rachel Porter and the 4 fired executives, surveillance photos Blake had commissioned showing Victoria's movements, her routines, the cafes she frequented, and the time she left her office.
Maya had to testify. Jamal had fought against it with every argument he could marshal. But Maya herself had settled the matter with stubborn certainty that she brought to everything. I want to tell them what happened. I want them to know I was scared, but I was brave. The testimony was conducted via video link from a comfortable room in the courthouse. Child psychologists and victim advocates surrounded her, stuffed animals and gentle questions. Maya wore her purple dress with the sparkly butterflies. She held a teddy bear from the Morrison Hotel like a talisman. The woman said my daddy called. But my daddy always calls when someone new is picking me up. Always. So I knew she was lying. Her voice was steady, clear. The courtroom listened with rapt attention. I was scared, but I remembered what Daddy taught me. Say no loud. Tell someone safe. Wait for Daddy to come. She looked directly at the camera, at the jury watching from the courtroom. And Daddy always comes. That's what daddies do. There was not a dry eye in the courtroom when her testimony concluded. Jamal took the stand on the second day. The prosecutor was a sharp woman in her 50s who had built her career on cases exactly like this one. Mr. Thompson, why did you agree to help Miss Ashford that day in Madison Square Park? Because she asked, and because she said please. The answer was simple, factual. But Jamal saw several jury members nod. Blake Morrison's defense attorney tried to paint Jamal as an opportunist, someone who saw a chance to elevate himself by attaching to power. Isn't it true that you work for Ms. Ashford's company? That helping her could advance your career? I work as an analyst. I analyze manuscripts and make recommendations. My relationship with Victoria Ashford has nothing to do with my professional competence. Jamal's voice stayed level, calm. I have dignity, and I teach my daughter that dignity isn't something you trade for opportunity. It's who you are when no one's offering you anything. The line landed. He saw it register with the jury, saw the defense attorney realize his strategy had backfired. You've lost your wife, nearly lost your daughter twice. That must have been difficult. The attorney's tone tried for sympathy, landed somewhere near condescension. I lost my wife to her own choices 4 years ago. My daughter faced danger because of Blake Morrison's obsession. But I never lost myself. That's what he can't take. That's what he couldn't understand. Jamal leaned forward slightly. Character isn't something external circumstances can destroy. It's what you choose when everything's been stripped away. And I choose to be the kind of man my daughter can be proud of. The kind of man who stands with people instead of using them. Eleanor Morrison testified on the third day. The courtroom went silent when she was called. A mother testifying against her own son carried weight that transcended legal strategy. She walked to the stand with dignity that matched Grace Ashford's. 2 women from the same social strata, both grappling with the failures of their children in opposite directions. Mrs. Morrison, you're aware that testifying against your son could have serious consequences for your family. The prosecutor's voice was gentle. I'm aware, but I've enabled Blake his entire life, protected him from consequences, told myself he would grow out of it, that love meant sheltering him from his own actions. Eleanor's voice grew stronger. I was wrong, and I won't enable him to destroy innocent people. What he did to that child is unforgivable. What he did to Ms. Ashford is unforgivable. I failed him as a mother, but I won't fail to tell the truth now. Blake sat at the defense table, his face destroyed by his mother's words. The realization that even family loyalty had limits, that money and connections could not buy his way out of this. Victoria testified after Eleanor. Her composure was back, the CEO armor firmly in place. But her voice carried emotion when she spoke about the fear, the months of looking over her shoulder, the isolation that came from not knowing who to trust. Blake Morrison's attorney tried one last strategy,
Miss Ashford, isn't it true you once told my client you needed time? Not that you never wanted to see him again, just that you needed time to think. I said no. I said it clearly, multiple times. If he heard anything else, that exists only in his imagination. Victoria's eyes found Blake across the courtroom. Mr. Thompson didn't save me from Mr. Morrison. We saved each other. And Mr. Morrison can't comprehend that because he's never understood what it means to stand with someone instead of over them. The verdict came after 2 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, stalking, multiple counts of violating a restraining order, harassment. The judge was a woman in her 60s who had no connection to Blake's father. She delivered the sentence without hesitation. 5 years in a psychiatric facility with mandatory treatment. 5 years of supervised release after that. You will have no contact with Ms. Ashford or the Thompson family. You will undergo comprehensive evaluation and treatment before any consideration of release. She looked at Blake with something that might have been pity. Mr. Morrison, what you described as love was possession. What you called devotion was obsession. I hope in the coming years you learn the difference. Blake was led away in handcuffs. His final look at Victoria carried no recognition, no understanding, just the bewilderment of someone who had never been told no and still could not comprehend why his world had collapsed. The media coverage was extensive. CEO's partner helps convict stalker. Single father's dignity inspires jury. The stories painted Jamal as a hero, Victoria as a survivor, Maya as the brave child whose testimony sealed the verdict. Jamal ignored most of it. He was not interested in being a symbol or an inspiration. He was interested in the woman who had crashed into his life and the daughter who had shown more courage than most adults. 2 weeks after the trial, Jamal took Victoria to Madison Square Park. 1 year exactly from the day they had met. Maya was with them, feeding pigeons near the fountain. The limping bird that had been Maya's project the previous October was still there, still adapting, still surviving. Victoria. Jamal's voice carried steady despite the racing of his heart. 1 year ago, you asked me to pretend. I stopped pretending months ago. He pulled out a ring, simple and elegant, the kind of ring that had taken months of saving to afford, but looked exactly right for the woman standing before him. You taught me that opening my heart again doesn't dishonor my past. It honors Maya's future. You taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up broken and trying anyway. Victoria, will you marry me? Will you be Maya's mother? Not replacing anyone, but adding to the love we already have. Victoria's face crumpled. Tears spilled over without shame or apology. Yes, absolutely yes. The ring slipped onto her finger. Maya appeared at their side with perfect timing. Does this mean I can call you Mom now? Victoria knelt to meet Maya's eyes. I'd be honored. So honored. Good. Maya's tone suggested this had been decided long ago and the adults were simply catching up. Because I already drew you into our family. You're in all my purple pictures now. They stayed in the park for another hour. 3 people on the bench where 2 strangers had become something that looked remarkably like destiny. The wedding was planned for mid-April. 6 weeks to arrange something that would mark not just a marriage, but a family officially forming. Grace Ashford insisted on paying for everything. Her way of acknowledging that she had been wrong about Jamal, that working-class dignity had taught her daughter something money never could. They chose a converted brownstone in Brooklyn, 50 guests, colleagues who had become friends, Marcus Blake serving as best man, Mrs. Patterson bringing Mr. Whiskers in a carrier because she insisted the cat deserved to witness history. The ceremony was combined with Maya's adoption finalization. The judge who had sentenced Blake Morrison had recommended a colleague for the adoption proceedings. Judge Sarah Chen was a woman who understood the weight of making a family official. Victoria wore a dress of ivory silk, her hair loose the way Jamal preferred. She looked like herself rather than the CEO armor she had worn for so long. Maya was flower girl in her purple dress with sparkly butterflies. She took her duties seriously, scattering petals with the focus of someone defusing a bomb. Grace sat in the front row, crying openly for the first time in memory. Marcus made a speech about stubborn idealism meeting corporate pragmatism and somehow creating alchemy. Eleanor Morrison attended, a brave gesture that acknowledged her son's crimes while honoring the family that had survived them. The vows were traditional, with personal additions. Jamal spoke about courage having cost, about choosing to trust again, about believing that second chances existed not to replace first loves, but to honor them by living fully. Victoria spoke about walls she had built to protect herself, about the man and child who had shown her that safety did not require isolation, that being seen completely was terrifying and necessary and worth every moment of fear. The adoption ceremony followed immediately. Judge Chen's voice carried the weight of making something permanent. Do you, Victoria Ashford Thompson, accept Maya Alicia Thompson as your legal daughter? Do you promise to love her, protect her, guide her, and be present for her in all ways a mother should be? With all my heart. Victoria's voice did not waver. Maya, do you understand what this means? That Victoria will be your mother in every legal way? It means we're a real family now. With papers. Maya's answer made the courtroom laugh. Even the judge smiled. Then, by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I declare this adoption final and binding. Maya Alicia Thompson, you now have 2 legal parents. Congratulations. Maya hugged Victoria with enough force to nearly knock her over. Now I have a mom who chose to stay. The reception lasted into the evening, dancing and toasts, and the kind of joy that comes from reaching the other side of something difficult. Jamal and Victoria's first dance was to a song about weathering storms and finding shelter. Maya joined them halfway through, lifted between her parents. The photographer captured that moment. 3 people holding on to each other in the middle of a Brooklyn garden, creating their own universe. Later, after guests had departed and Maya had fallen asleep in her flower girl dress, Jamal and Victoria stood on the brownstones terrace, looking out at the Brooklyn skyline. The city sparkled with possibilities. This morning I woke up single. Victoria's voice carried wonder. Tonight, I'm a wife and a mother. That's a lot of change for one day. Any regrets? Not even one. She leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her. They stood in comfortable silence, processing everything that had led to this moment. I keep thinking about that day in the park, how desperate I was, how certain I was that my life would always be fear and running, never being able to trust anyone. And now? Now I have everything I never let myself want. A partner, a daughter, a home that feels like a home instead of just an address. Jamal pressed a kiss to her hair. You know what my father used to say? He was a plumber, spent his whole life fixing other people's problems. But he told me once that the value of a man isn't in his wallet. It's in how he treats the people he loves when nobody's watching. Your father sounds wise. He was. He would have loved you. Would have seen through the CEO armor in about 5 seconds and gotten straight to the real you underneath. Victoria laughed quietly. The real me who can't cook and works too much and probably should have started therapy years earlier. The real you who loves fiercely and protects completely. Who opened your heart to a stranger and his daughter because a 6-year-old told you that you look sad under the pretty. They went inside, checked on Maya one more time, finally retreated to the master bedroom.
The intimacy that night was gentle. The joining of two people who had learned to trust each other with their worst fears and highest hopes. They fell asleep tangled together. For the first time in longer than either could remember, neither of them was afraid of tomorrow. 18 months later, they returned to Madison Square Park. The October air carried the same promise it had when they first met. Jamal, Victoria, and Maya sat on their bench. The limping pigeon was still there, still adapting to its injury, still finding food despite the handicap. Maya was drawing with purple crayons, creating an elaborate scene that captured their family with the artistic license of an 8-year-old. "What are you drawing?" Victoria leaned over to look. "Our family. The 3 of us." Maya pointed to a purple figure hovering above the drawn family. "And that's Mommy Stephanie. She's watching us be happy." Victoria's eyes filled, but she smiled through it. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. She's part of the purple now, like the crayons. She's still here, but different." Maya delivered this observation with the matter-of-fact wisdom that continued to surprise and humble the adults around her. Jamal looked at Victoria, at the woman who had transformed from someone running in terror to someone who ran toward everything: family, love, the messy, complicated beauty of building a life with other people. "1 year ago, I was running from everything." Victoria's voice was soft. "Now I run toward everything. You, Maya, this life. Sometimes the best things crash into your life when you least expect them." Jamal pulled her closer. "And sometimes you're brave enough to catch them." A jogger passed. A family set up a picnic nearby. The city continued its endless rhythm around them, indifferent to small human dramas, unconcerned with whether 2 strangers on a bench would become something more. But they had. Against odds that looked impossible, through circumstances that could have destroyed them, they had found each other and held on, built something that looked remarkably like forever. Maya leaned against Victoria's side, the easy affection of a child who knew she was loved, who understood that families came in all shapes, that mothers could be chosen, that love was not about perfection, but about showing up every day and trying. "Tell Mom how you feel, Daddy." Maya's voice carried the bossy certainty of someone who knew exactly how the world should work. Jamal looked at Victoria, at the woman who controlled 38 floors of Manhattan real estate, but had learned to burn pancakes and braid hair and read bedtime stories with theatrical flair. "I love you." "Say that first part again." Victoria smiled, the same demand for vulnerability he had taught her months ago. "I love you." Again. "I love you, Victoria Thompson." "Gross," Maya announced, "but also good." They stayed until the sun began to set, until the October light turned everything golden, until Maya announced she was hungry and could they please get pizza. They walked home together, 3 people who had started as strangers and become the thing that mattered most to each other. Some stories begin with falling. Theirs began with someone brave enough to catch.